Hello, this is astrologer coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the new moon in Pisces, which will be exact on February 20th at 2:06 a.m. East Coast time in the US, which is New York time, which is 7:06 a.m. London time. And the moon will align with the sun in almost 1.5 degrees of Pisces, and that starts the new moon cycle for the next 28 days. And of course, new moons mark endings and beginnings of a monthly cycle. And so they're a really great time for us to pause, to reflect, and to set some intentions for the next 28 days. Now, we will talk about the best time for setting intentions towards the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. This new moon is another supermoon, which is the third supermoon, new moon supermoon in a row now. And these supermoons occur when the moon is at its closest distance to the Earth, whenever there's a new moon or a full moon, and they are considered more powerful because of the distance of the moon being much closer. So this means that we have a greater awareness of the issues connected to this particular new moon energy that we're experiencing. So since this new moon occurs in Pisces, this super new moon invites us to connect with our inner divinity and with our ability to receive, to trust our intuition, and to contribute to life from a heart-centered and empathic place. Now, this new moon chart has 4 planets in Pisces, which include, of course, Sun and Moon. But then also Neptune and Venus are very closely aligned with each other. And Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So that is very important, that planet. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then Venus and Pluto are both in 29 degrees of their signs in this new moon chart, which is an exalted degree. So we'll mention that as well. And the new moon trines the south node in Scorpio, and that makes it easier for us to release trauma from the past and allow ourselves to feel whatever needs to be felt. So whatever needs to be processed on an emotional level is something that we have an easier time doing now with this next new moon phase, the next 28 days after February 20th. Now, Mercury in Aquarius is the planet most aspected in this super new moon chart. It trines Mars in Gemini, it sextiles Chiron in Aries, and it squares Uranus in Taurus. And all of this brings an opportunity for greater healing and shifting things individually and collectively speaking. And I will go, of course, into all of those things in more detail in a moment. But first, let's talk about the Pisces energy and just get a sense for what that's about and what that feels like. Now, also feel free to use the timestamps in the description part of the video to watch the video in smaller sequences or jump to a part of the video that you're more interested in. Now, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And so it connects to our spiritual journey. It connects to how we can reunite with Source, with God, with the universe, how we're connecting to the energetic realm and the non-physical realm. And at its highest vibration, Pisces unifies all dualities, and it is completely aware that everything is one, that everything has sort of like an interconnectivity to it because everything is energy. And so if we're talking about the energy body of everything, then that is connected just for that reason. And it tells us that there's also a union within us that exists always and that we can tap into. So internally, everything is already present that is also exists on an external level. And at its densest expression, Pisces feels separate, feels fearful and victimized, and it wants to escape the harsh physical realities of this world. And so what happens with this lower vibration of Pisces, we have a tendency to get trapped in that lower vibration when we are not capable of connecting to our own divinity from within, when we don't rest enough, when we can't trust ourselves or life, when we're not able to connect to our own inner processes and to our intuitive selves, and also our feeling processes, right? They are very much connected to Pisces as well. So ask yourself, what is in the way of a connection to my inner divinity? And what prevents me from slowing down or tuning inwards or trusting my own inner guidance? You know, it's that subtle inner voice, or that subtle sensing or feeling that we get sometimes when we're, you know, it doesn't come from up here. It usually comes from a more visceral place. Now, for more details about the Pisces energy, please read my new moon article via your members portal on my site. You can also access it on the blog page if you're not a member. I will be posting this article probably by February 13th already. And to get access to all of my daily forecasts, my astrology articles, and other member content, including all of the astrology questions in writing from this video, please feel free to become a member of my online community for $4 a month or only $39 for the whole year. Now, let's talk about some of the aspects of this super new moon chart, because of course, how everything's interconnected in this particular chart differentiates this particular new moon from any other new moon in Pisces. Now, Neptune, which is the modern ruler of Pisces, is closely aligned with Venus. And Venus is at 29 degrees of Pisces at the time of the new moon. And it's switching into a new sign only 50 minutes after the new moon becomes exact. So the 29 degree is the last degree of a sign before it switches into the next sign, and therefore it's a very exalted degree, and that heightens the planet's energy for that amount of time that it's in that degree, because it's almost like it's in that last degree, so it's trying to express itself as much as it can before it moves on into the next sign. So it becomes just a little bit louder. It's sort of like the last hurrah before it moves on. So in this case, Venus will move into Aries on February 20th, and it will journey there until March 16th. But at the time of the new moon, it has this very exalted Pisces energy still going on. So this exalted degree also indicates a strong urge to complete something, because, you know, we're finishing something off before we move on to the next sign. And so most likely that something is something that started on or after January 26th, when Venus started its journey through Pisces. So think back to January 26th and afterwards, and just see what has come up, you know, in regards to relationships, in regards to values, in regards to your own talents, money, in regards to what's important to you, your own preferences. You know, Venus is connected to all of those things. Now, Venus represents our relationship to others and ourselves, and what we most value, of course. And so in Pisces, we most value a compassionate heart. Our love is very accepting. It comes as close to unconditional as humans can get, with all things being equal, by the way. Doesn't mean that just because you have Venus in Pisces, that's necessarily completely true. But if that's a strong placement in your chart, then that's certainly going to be a component. And especially if Neptune is involved as well. So like a Venus-Neptune connection will have a very open, compassionate heart. Now, the alignment with Neptune that Venus is making in this chart asks us to dissolve anything that keeps us from opening our heart more fully. And this connection makes us dream of sort of like a soul connection with other people, like really feeling, we want to feel one, we want to feel connected. And so this combination also makes it easier for us to forgive others and to forgive ourselves. And we can see the divine potential in others, and therefore we are able to lean more towards a compassionate approach. Now, what you can ask yourself here is, with this Neptune-Venus combination, what or who needs my forgiveness and higher love, myself included? And what needs to dissolve or melt away from my heart to be more fully open, to just really feel this kind of like energy radiating out from the heart? And what is my current relationship to the divine? And in what ways could my imagination support that relationship? Sometimes, allowing ourselves to go into these places of imagination and fantasy and idealism can sometimes help us to tap into, what the divine feels like and what life wants us to explore and experience in connection with the divine. Now, might I be able to trust life and its mysterious ways more easily with this combo? And how about my relationships? Might I be able to trust those and their mysterious ways more easily as well? Now, how would you like to have a better relationship with others or even with yourself? So it's really time to ask yourself, what do I bring to all of my relationships? And of course, the relationship that you have with yourself is what you bring to all other relationships, because here you are, wherever you go, here you are, right? Now, that encompasses things like your inner dialogue, right? The stories we tell ourselves, that narrative that keeps going on in there. We bring that wherever we go, right? So that inner dialogue is a big part of the relationship that we have with ourselves and with other people. Our ability or inability to nurture yourself or ourselves. That ability or inability to nurture ourselves will tell us what our relationship with ourselves and with other people look like. Then an ability or inability to understand our needs moment to moment. Our ability or inability to allow ourselves to feel, allow ourselves to let feelings come up and move through. What's our relationship with feelings? Very important. The way we honor our own being or our own talents. That's something that tells us a lot about the relationship we have with ourselves, how we honor ourselves. Now, also our willingness or unwillingness to grow and step outside of our comfort zone. Sometimes we go into these places of avoidance. Sometimes we go into these places of like great courage and we want to step up and we want to grow. But other times we retreat, we get scared, we avoid things, we try to stay very small. So that also says something about our own relationship to ourselves and to other people. Now, the other thing is also our capacity for self-compassion and self-forgiveness, especially when it comes to forgiving ourselves for being human. That's a big one. That's a big one for most people. It's so much easier for most people to be compassionate with other people, but it's much harder often to be compassionate with ourselves. But that capacity for self-compassion and self-forgiveness is really, really important in terms of like how you connect with other people. So would you like to have a better relationship with yourself? Hearing all of that, right? Like all these things that I just said, did some of that sort of like go like, yeah, there's some stuff I could work on for sure. Venus in the last degree of Pisces also sextiles Pluto in the last degree of Capricorn. So we have these two planets in 29 degrees of each of their signs, heightened, louder, wanting to express themselves, before they move on into the next sign. And of course, Venus moves on into the next sign much sooner than Pluto. Pluto is going to stay in Capricorn in that last degree until the end of March. And so those two are sort of like saying, hey, how can we help each other? How can we support each other here? And so this really creates an opportunity with this new moon to bring a sense of compassion and creativity to whatever needs restructuring or rebuilding in our lives. So ask yourself, could I give myself permission to notice how obsessed I've become with manifesting something real and authentic in my life? And could I soften my approach by just 5% for the next 2 weeks at least? And what might I discover if I allowed myself to trust the process rather than obsess about it? So remember, Venus in Pisces brings sort of this gentle, more caring, loving, compassionate component to the table. And Pluto in Capricorn can be quite intense and quite focused and quite, like, gotta get this done or I gotta do more, right? Kind of ambitious in a way. And so if we're able to bring the two together, it's an opportune aspect, which means that we have to use the opportunity. It's not necessarily just given to us. We have to actually take advantage of it, right? Now, the new moon trines the south node in Scorpio and aligns with Saturn in Aquarius. And this alignment with Saturn brings a more serious and concrete tone to this creative and flowy new moon energy. So we need to just be a little bit more grounded, more realistic, more real. And we can also get a sense of what's to come when Saturn will start its journey through Pisces on March 7th, because, Saturn is so close to that Pisces energy already and is connecting with that new moon. So that gives us a little bit of a sense of what that could be about. Now, we will address this in great detail in our next forecasting forum on March 6th, so feel free to join us live or watch the MP4 presentation of this 90-minute webinar. And we also talked about it in our 2023, a look ahead for 2023 webinar that we did at the beginning of the year as well. So if you're interested in all of 2023 and all the planetary changes, that would be a good one to watch as well, if you haven't seen it yet. All right, now the new moon's trine to the south node in Scorpio. What's that about? Now, of course, trine always makes things easier for us. And in this case, it makes it easier for us to release old fears and protective behaviors that no longer serve us. And it invites us to examine and redefine old traumas or past disempowerments, individually and collectively speaking. So this is a process that happens on several levels. And it also is much easier now to revise or adjust old or toxic ways of connecting with other people by tapping into this Pisces energy of forgiveness, acceptance, compassion. So we're getting to be a little bit more open from the heart, a little bit more trusting. And this could be in connection with our intimate or financial partners, or with people's resources in general, other people's resources in general, with transformative processes such as therapy or other forms of self-exploration, and with our ability to trust others. So ask yourself, what are my motivations when connecting to other people? Do I have an agenda? Do I try to protect myself? Am I afraid of losing something or being hurt or being betrayed? Now, it's very important that when we're asking these questions, right, that we can really tune in to these questions, that we're not just answering them from the mind, but that we're really allowing ourselves to sort of feel into that, because the feeling into it gives us more of a sense of what's there in our heart, and also what's there intuitively. How are we intuitively connecting to the energies that we're currently experiencing, right? Now, some other questions you can ask here is, how might a compassionate heart help me surrender my fears in connection to past trauma or disempowerment? and what has been in my awareness lately when it comes to such fears, when something like that shows up. It's really important that we as people and also as society, that we are more aware of what we're scared about and of our own fears. It's very easy to dismiss the fact that we all have fears or that we're scared sometimes, and to deny that or to push it away. But by pushing it away, we are actually not doing ourselves or anybody else a good service, because we're just creating sort of like it's almost like a pressure cooker. We're creating this fear, then becomes bigger and bigger and bigger by just suppressing it and not acknowledging it. So how can we become a little bit more aware around what we feel scared about or concerned about or worried about? See, concern and worry is just another word for fear, right? And sometimes we think that, because we're worried, that's okay. We're not scared. We're just worried. But it's fear. Worry is fear. So just tune into your body and see, like, where does this tension take place in the body that we call concern or worry? Is it in our chest? Is it in our core? Is it in our groin? Is it in our shoulders? Is it in our head, right? Like, where does this take place? And to just see, how can we allow ourselves to just bring love and compassion to those tensions in our body, and to just release and relax and trust, surrender, trust that all is well. Now, another planet we want to talk about with this new moon chart is Jupiter, because Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces, and Jupiter aligns with Chiron in Aries. Now, Jupiter and Chiron will make an exact conjunction on March 12th at 14.5 degrees of Aries, which will start a new perspective on our healing journey around the masculine energies for all of us, collectively and individually speaking. We're going to start to shift how we look at the wounded masculine, the toxic masculine, the masculine expression in our lives, how we want to balance that, or how we want to grow or expand around that. Now, the energy to this alignment has started to build since January 7th already, and it will become significantly stronger as we get closer to March 12th. With anything in astrology, as an aspect becomes more and more exact, it starts to build and build and build. And we did talk about this in great detail in relationship to our own birth charts in our last forecasting forum. We explored what our beliefs are when it comes to our own humanity, our limitations, our possibility for being healed or for healing other people. So get a new perspective on your own personal healing journey if you like, if that sounds good and if that resonates. Feel free to watch that webinar or get more information about it by clicking on the link below this video. And if you'd like to be automatically registered for my monthly forecasting forums and you want to join us every month, feel free to take a look at the star membership on my website, because that will include the forecasting forums every month. And if you're already a star member, check your inbox for the MP4 recording of this event. I sent it out on February 6th in the late evening. All right. Now, let's talk about Mercury, because Mercury, of course, makes a lot of aspects in this super new moon chart. It trines Mars in Gemini, sextiles Chiron in Aries, and squares Uranus in Taurus. So let's unpack all of that. So let's start with Mercury sextile to Chiron, because that's the most exact one, which will be actually exact less than 10 hours after the super new moon becomes exact. And so this is an opportunity here to heal our insecurities in our verbal, in-person, social media, or email interactions, right? So any kind of like communication that we have with people, whether that's whoever with and whatever fashion these days, there's so many options to communicate, right? We're getting a chance to do some healing. Now, in particular, we're getting this chance by bringing love and understanding to our thinking processes. And we have a chance to move beyond something that's become almost like an entrenched habit, something, for example, like impatient self-talk. When we talk to ourselves and we just go, come on, blah, 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 whatever we might say to ourselves, right? Or something like when we use aggressive language with ourselves, or, just about life. For example, when we use swear words, or we get really agitated and get very aggressive. And so, just observing that is really good, and just being kind with yourself about that is really good. But here are a few good chew toys for your mind that you can use as some of that stuff might be coming up. So ask yourself, what was my family's attitude towards communication? When you were growing up, like, how did people in your family interact with each other in terms of how they spoke to each other? What did they say to each other? How did they deal with conflict, for example? How did they deal with aggression? How did they deal with feelings? What was communicated or what was not communicated? And what happened in terms of, in your family of origin, for example, what happened in terms of speaking up for yourself? Were you allowed to do that? Were you able to do that? Did it feel safe to do that? And what if I tried a kind of approach for just a little bit, no matter what you experienced as a child? Can you just bring even a little bit of a kind of approach to how you connect with communication? And ask yourself, does my inner dialogue really have to repeat what they said when I was a kid? So whoever was your, the people that raised you, the people that you looked up to, does my inner dialogue really have to repeat what they said when I was a kid? And what if I tried using a gentle voice for the next 10 minutes or so? And just notice how I'm saying here for the next 10 minutes or so. It's very important to take baby steps with these things, because the mind is so powerful and it's so habitual, right? We get in such a groove with the things that we think about, and the way we talk to ourselves. It's such a habitual thing. So just for 10 minutes, see if you can just add a little bit of a gentler voice, or just respond to whatever is going on up there, whatever inner narrative you have. Respond to that inner narrative in a kinder, gentler way. Now, Mercury also makes a square to Uranus in Taurus, and that asks us to stretch and grow, because it's a square, right? We're always sort of like needing to adjust something when we're dealing with a square. And this might well create some tension in our lives. We may feel anxious or stressed by a situation involving financial stability, group affiliation, or long-term visions. So something connected to the future. And it's definitely connected with our thinking as well, right? Because Mercury is about the information we're receiving, and the thoughts, and the inner dialogue and all that stuff. So ask yourself, might thinking outside the box be beneficial to me at this time? And what life situation that no longer fits could benefit from my making some changes? And might that also hold true for a vision I once held? So something in connection with how you saw the future, or what you were thinking about, what you wanted to create or achieve out there in the world. How might that vision be no longer, if that's no longer a fit, how could you benefit from making some changes? And how flexible could I allow my mind to be? So remember, this is Mercury, Uranus. Mercury is the day-to-day mind. Uranus is our higher mind, and they're squaring each other. They're in signs that are not compatible with each other. So how flexible could I allow my mind to be? And could I allow whatever is happening to stimulate a new approach in my life? And since there's a tendency right now to challenge established thought or play devil's advocate with this square, it also helps to get in touch with our inner truth. like really to check and see like what's true for me. And when we talk about inner truth, it's not a thought or a belief. It's something that feels really true. And you know, inner truth means that it's not something that's fickle. It doesn't just change because you have a different experience in life. It doesn't just change because you change as a person. Inner truth is really something that sort of like resonates with your inner being, with your innermost being. So it's something that's quite solid. So check to see what is that inner truth for you, and use your breath to turn any fear into excitement if you can, right? Because fear and excitement are sort of like the same energy, just the other side of the coin, so to speak. So use your breath, the breathing in, breathing out, to turn any kind of tension and fear or concern or worry that you have about the future, and use that to turn it into something that can get exciting for you. And then let yourself visualize a bigger dream. Let yourself visualize something that's beyond what you maybe have visualized before. Now, the last aspect that Mercury is making is the trine to Mars in Gemini, and that helps us clarify our vision. It helps us clarify, like what we want for the future. And it supports collaboration with others on shared goals on an equal footing. And our minds are a little bit more restless as well with that Gemini energy trining Mercury, which rules Gemini. So it's important that we keep ourselves active, right? So Mars in Gemini, there's constantly a wanting to go in action, do something. And so ask yourself here is, what visionary truths would I like to communicate to my various communities or networks? And what mutual decisions need to be made? And what mental activities would support me in challenging my restless mind-body energy in a productive way? So how can I channel some of that restless energy in a productive way, right? So we have to just see what might that look like. Now, Mars in Gemini also sextiles Chiron in Aries. And so this creates an opportunity for seeing our collective masculine wounding as a way to create a more holistic approach to how we go after things in our lives. So, Chiron always asks us to come from a holistic place, to integrate opposites. And of course, with Chiron being in Aries, which is such a masculine energy, the opposite of very masculine would be very feminine. So we're needing to learn, how do we integrate a very feminine with a very masculine energy? And how do we bring them together so that we can approach things from all angles? And what you can ask yourself here is, what might shift if my masculine doing energy stood in service to my intuitive, receptive feminine? And what might a holistic approach make possible? And what if I took a curious approach towards my flaws, my quirks, my insecurities? How can I be more curious about that rather than judgmental or harsh? How can I just be stay open-minded about this? And how might that support my healing process or someone else's healing process? And of course, we also have to remember that Jupiter is very close to Chiron as well, even though Jupiter is not quite sextiling Mars, but it is very close to Chiron. So bringing a sense of humor into the picture could be very helpful as well with this combination. Now, to sum it all up for this super new moon, the next 28 days are an opportunity to tap into our intuitive and imaginative abilities and then focus anew at what's important for us, again, without rushing it, right? Saturn is involved here. Remember, Saturn wants us to slow down a little bit. And then we also want to remember that many of us are probably a little exhausted from all that shifting that's been going on collectively, individually speaking. There's so many inner processes that's taking place. And sometimes, that can be quite exhausting, just as much as, physical work. Our mental, emotional, and spiritual work can take up a lot of our energy as well. And so really take really good care of your body, take really good care of your mind, take really good care of your feelings. Really follow your inner guidance, release, recharge, and remember that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. We are always spiritual beings first, because that is always there. That never goes away, whether you have a physical body or you don't. You're always a spiritual being first. And then as best as you can, of course, unplug and listen deeply to your heart and soul. Allow yourself to be with what is rather than what you'd like it to be. Try not to change or fix things in any way, and just be with it. Be with your feelings, be with your thoughts, be with what you observe out there in the world, be with it. And then, only then, once you're able to be with what is, then take some action. And then ask yourself, what exists already in my current environment that opens my heart? And we all have something, right? We all have something in our current environment that feels very heart-opening. It could be a pet, it could be a plant, it could be a child, it could be a really good friend. It could be, just nature, life out there in the world, a flower, something that we see that just, opens our heart. It could be a word, a sentence from a book. It could be a song, right? I mean, there's so many things that could open our heart. So what exists already in my current environment that opens my heart? And what might change for me if I knew for certain that everything is proceeding according to plan? And this is a really important question right now because of all the uncertainty that we're all experiencing and feeling on so many levels. So if we only thought of the possibility that all of it is exactly as it needs to be. So what might change for me internally, in my head, in my feelings, in my physical body, if I knew for certain that everything is proceeding according to plan? And what might reconnect me to a spiritual trust? How can we be a little bit more trusting spiritually, intuitively, with life? What might connect me to a spiritual trust? And then, of course, spiritual practice is also wonderful here with this new moon energy. Anything connection with meditation or breathing exercises, mindfulness exercises, anything like that. And the same is also true of spiritual energetic healing modalities. Anything that you can incorporate into your life right now that's connected to that energetic, non-physical stuff, that really helps you connect to the universe, to your higher self. So all of these things can help us tap into that higher vibration of Pisces. And the more you can tap into that higher vibration, the less you're going to be trapped in the denser vibration. And so anything that's spiritual, but also creative stuff, like creative flow of dance or qigong or singing or music, sound, dream work, creative writing, art. These are all things that are connected to that higher Pisces vibration. And then, of course, simply also being in touch with your own intuition. And positive emotions like love, gratitude, compassion, these are all very central to the Pisces energy. So what else can help us experience our connection to the all? To this oneness? What can help us experience that? That's really the big question for the next 28 days. And so I just want to invite you to share about your own spiritual practices that work for you, or that the things that you love the most, that help you get in touch with that inner Neptune energy or that inner Pisces energy. And if you wouldn't mind sharing in the comment section, either on my YouTube channel or on my website in the comment section, I think just hearing from other people would be really helpful to see what other people do in their lives when it comes to truly connecting to that heart energy, to that spiritual place. Now, if you do have an ascendant or any personal planets in 0 to 4 degrees of Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, or 29 degrees of Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio, then this super new moon will have a stronger impact on you than on other people. And the reason why there are so many signs that I'm mentioning here with this new moon is because the new moon is such an early degree of Pisces that because of the orbs, we need to also consider the sign before Pisces, which is Aquarius at 29 degrees. That will also have quite a big impact if you have any planets there or ascendant or anything like that. Now, if you have your own birth chart, feel free to take a look to see where does 1.5 degrees of Pisces land in your birth chart, just so you can see what area of life is most impacted by this super new moon for the next 28 days after February 20th. And if you don't have your own birth chart or you don't know how to look that up, feel free to watch my video, How to Read Your Own Birth Chart, which is available for free on my website. If you go to my homepage at astrologercoach.com, and you just scroll down to where it says free class, and you just click on that window, it will take you to that class. It's a 30-minute class. And at the end of that class, I will also tell you how to get your own birth chart online. Yeah, but before we talk about new moon intentions, let me just briefly mention again our next forecasting forum, which will be all about Saturn's 2.5-year journey through Pisces in relationship to our own birth chart. So we'll take a look at how each of us will impact that journey of Saturn over the next 2.5 years. And you can join me live on Monday, March 6th at 5 p.m. New York time, which is 2 p.m. Pacific time and 10 p.m. London time. And I think it's 9 a.m. Sydney time as well in Australia. And if this date and time doesn't work for you, watch the MP4 video recording of the live event. You can register only for that particular month if you're only interested in this particular transit. There is an early bird special available until March 4th at midnight, New York time. And if you'd like to be registered automatically every month, feel free to become a star member on my site. And if you are already a star member, you can always email me with a question. And if you've registered for the forecasting forum, you can email me with a question about Saturn or about that movement through Pisces in connection with your chart. Now, let's talk about setting new moon intentions. The new moon is also the best time to set some powerful intentions for this month's moon cycle. And you want to do that after the new moon becomes exact and not during a moon void, of course. So this month, the best time to set intentions would be between 2:06 a.m. on February 20th and 11:06 a.m. on February 21st. And then again from 12:14 a.m. until 2:06 a.m. on February 22nd. So that's right after midnight, on the 21st, 22nd. Now, this is all New York time. If you don't live in the New York time zone or US East Coast time, I recommend that you join my Facebook page or follow me on Twitter. I will be posting reminders on February 20th, 21st, and 22nd to let you know when it's time to set your intentions, when is the best time to do so. Or you can also, of course, look it up yourself as well if you'd like to do that. And if you need also more information about setting intentions for the new moon, if you want to know how to do that, then definitely feel free to my new moon intentions article. I will have a link below this video for that. All right. So any questions that you might have about this super new moon in general or astrology in general, or any of the webinars that I'm doing, feel free to email me at info@astrologercoach.com. If you have any personal questions that require that I pull up your birth chart, please ask them during the next monthly forecasting forum, or book a reading either with me or with Leah on my website. Leah is a soul-based astrology student of mine who has finished a curriculum that I've created. And so she's definitely qualified to do readings for people. I've qualified her. So yeah, take a look on my website on the readings page. And yeah, have a fantastic new moon. And hopefully I'll be seeing some of you really soon for the webinar on the 16th, or for the next forecasting forum on March 6th, or for the next full moon video, which will be in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, which is going to be for my members. All right, have a fantastic new moon, and I will see you soon. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.